On behalf of the Institute for Leadership and Strategic Foresight, welcome to So You Want to Be the Chief, a podcast for leaders.
Well, it's another great day. It always is a great day when you're my age and you're awake. But it's another great day to meet a youngster. I call him a youngster because he is a couple of years, about 500 years younger than me. He is Chief Master Sergeant retired Darrius Smith. He is an author. He just wrote a new book called, and it's behind you, Darrius. Lead with, and it says authority, but it's lined out and purpose. So lead with purpose. That's the idea of your book. And congratulations on having it published just recently, I think.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And best of luck with that. And you have a company called Stay Ready. That's a consulting organization, right?
It is, yes, sir, and workforce development.
Okay, very good. Well, good to meet you. You know, the great thing about the technology that we have is we can meet each other without ever really meeting each other. So we don't have to like each other as long as we look like we like each other.
Right.
But just before we started, we started talking about friends that we each have mutual friends, and it's a good thing, man. It is staying connected is a big thing, as you remember, in the chief world. And you can't stop doing that when you retire. You know, you got to keep those connections going because, first of all, we understand each other. And secondly, we probably need each other once in a while. You know, there's been a lot of times when somebody says, hey, I need to blah, blah, blah. Hey, go call Bogdan. Bogdan knows this stuff. And Keith Castillo, I know you know KC. So those guys, we got to stick together and help each other out. So good to have you on the show. Now, where are you from originally?
So I'm originally from St. Petersburg, Florida, born and raised.
Born and raised. Okay. Now, is there a college down there that you support?
So I'm a Florida State fan. Florida State Seminoles up in Tallahassee. It's probably a 3.5-hour drive, not the Gators.
Not the Gators. What is up with you, man?
No, so everybody in my family supports the Gators,
right?
Except my dad. So I think that's what led me to going to Florida State. So
is that right? Okay. Yeah. All right. Now, did you go to school before you joined the Air Force? Did you go to college or?
So I just did junior college about a year and a half, and when it was spring break, so around this time, you know, so the semester's almost over, and I was like, you know what, this isn't for me anymore. I'm trying this big blue thing, right? I was close to the Army, but one of my uncles, he told me, he said, hey, go talk to the Air Force recruiter, and I did, and never looked back. So I think it was the best thing that happened for me.
Was it? Did you? Now, how long did you serve?
25 years, 1 month, and 19 days. Not that I'm counting.
Not that you're counting.
Not that I did count.
Now it doesn't matter, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. Was it good overall? You know, sometimes we have bad days. That's the way it is with everything. But overall, would you do it all over again?
Absolutely.
Really? Okay.
You know, there was I was very fortunate throughout my career. I had, you know, mentors and commanders, you know, as I progressed through the ranks who actually supported me. And it's one of those things that's rare. So my bosses supported me because I was the guy who always spoke up and said, hey, this is what I want to do. This is what I'm trying to do. Chief had always been my goal from the very first time I saw a chief first sergeant. I was like, that's me. That's who I will be. Yeah. And then as I progressed through the ranks, they took the chiefs out of the squadron. So I was like, oh, shit. You know, now what am I going to do, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, fortunately, I got back in. I kept my nose to the grind. And kept going. And I got to mention, I'll be, you know, remiss if I don't talk about Senior Master Sergeant Marv Jackson. I don't know if you know him.
I don't think so.
But he was my very first sergeant in Alaska. And my very first assignment, I was like, that's who I want to be.
Yeah.
Everybody knew who he was. When I made chief, I sent him some stripes, signed a letter, said, hey, you have always been my motivation, sir.
Yeah.
And that's my guy.
Yeah. So Senior Master Sergeant retired?
Senior Master Sergeant retired, Marv Jackson.
Marv Jackson.
He was up in Alaska.
Okay, very good. Well, Senior, if you're out there listening, thank you, man, for taking care of this youngster and helping him become a chief. And you know, maybe we have a similar background, Chief, in that, but this is not necessarily normal anymore. I had several mentors when I got in trouble, man. And these chiefs took me under their wing and made me a chief. I mean, there were many times I said, I ain't doing that. And they'd say, yes, you are. And I did. And they made me a chief. I'm not sure that young chiefs in particular have those mentors, man. So maybe we're blessed in having had mentors who helped us out. And, you know, maybe we as chiefs need to do that more often and better. to make other chiefs. It's not a competition. Once you made it,
Right.
I guess some people want to go for E10 or whatever.
Right.
We have anymore, but no, man, it's about taking care. That's what I call air power, HEIR power. Help
Okay.
someone to become who you are, whatever, probably who they are. Sometimes they
Right.
don't even know who they are. So
Absolutely.
yeah. Well, let's get into, because I want to talk about some of the stuff that you have in the book. I don't know that we'll get to everything that I read it. It's a good book for any of those of our listeners. Please get that. And which is the other book that you mentioned earlier? Somebody else wrote another book that you're reading, you said.
Oh, Scott Stalker, Left of Leadership.
Left of Leadership. Get that book. I read everything that I find a chief writes because I learned something, and there's a lot for me to learn. But if nothing else, different perspectives on how we used to do things, how we should do things. So get the what was it? Left of Leadership, right?
Left of Leadership by Scott Stalker. Yes, he was
Yes.
the senior enlisted leader for NSA, the National Security Agency.
Yeah.
I think he's held 3 COCOM positions. He's I don't want to mess this up. Oh my goodness. Master Guns in the Marine Corps, because
Yeah.
it's the Sergeant Major and Master Guns. I'm pretty sure it's Master Guns.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very good and good stuff. Very good. I read that a couple of months ago. But
Yeah.
anyway, in your book, let me see if I can read what I highlighted. Power in its truest form does not stem from controlling the external world, bullying the market, or intimidating a problematic employee. Instead, it surges from mastery of your internal world, your thoughts, emotions, and reactions, which makes it you the leader, right?
Right.
I mean, it's internal. What you're talking about is internal, and I often share people with people. I tell them, close your fists.
Yeah.
Now, how powerful are you with closed fists? Not very much. Okay, open your hands, open your arms. How powerful are you now? A lot more. You
Right.
can give a lot more with open arms, open hands than you can with the closed fists. So, and that's kind of what I got from what you said. Your perspective, Darrius. What the?
So you hit it on the head. So for me, it starts with self-leadership, right? So if you learn how to control yourself, the people that are following you tend to, come into their own. They know they support, you're supporting them versus them supporting you. So they get to be who they are. And just like you said, that tight fist analogy, you with your fist closed, you're not receptive to anything. And people notice that. So if you're not welcoming them, then there's no connection. They'll tend to shy away from you. So for me, that's the reason why I started with it. It's like, hey, self leadership. You learn how to lead yourself, and others
Yeah,
will follow. You
yeah,
don't have to bully anybody, because when you're bullying people, it becomes all about you,
yeah,
and it's just you. You see those leaders who are trying to make themselves look good for whatever reason, and the people quickly identify. It's not about me. My best interest is not at hand. He or she is just trying to promote and make themselves look good.
Oh, okay. Wait a minute. Wait a minute. Wait, Darius. I'm the chief, man. I'm the leader. You better do what I say.
Yeah. No, that's false.
You people gonna argue, man?
No, it's not about arguing. It's a different perspective, right? So for
Yeah,
me, you can only go as far as your people take you once you become the chief. And some people lose sight of that only because I believe that they're, like we talked about, jockeying for E10, but there is no E10. Once you make chief, I don't want to say you've made it, but you've reached your pinnacle of promotion. So now it's time to uplift the future,
yeah,
to raise and groom future leaders. So it's not. I learned that too. It's not because I'm the chief or I'm the first sergeant. You do as I say. You got to lead by example, and people will run through a brick wall for you once they know. Hey, they see chief or the first sergeant take out the trash. There's no questions once. Say, hey, this needs to be done or that needs to be done. If he or she will do it, then let's fall in line,
yeah,
because they have my back and they're leading by example, right?
yeah.
It shows that you've learned, me or any of us as chiefs or leaders, we've learned to follow first. And
Right.
now we're leading by example, so others will be ready to follow.
Yeah. And I'm glad you said that because I'm working on another book that I've been working on for years, actually, because I used to teach this at the Air Force Academy. And it's called, and I have a podcast called The Other F Word, because that's a lot of times how we see followership. And I'm with you, brother. If you don't know how to follow well, you're not gonna lead well because you don't know how to do it to begin with, and it's in my sense is, and correct me if I'm wrong, but my sense is that we always say this, we're gonna fall back on our training. Whatever training you got, that's what you're gonna, whenever something happens that you really don't care and got to lead, you're gonna fall on that back on that. And if it's not good followership, you're gonna wait, you're gonna mess up. At the Air Force Academy, I just did that earlier today. I talked to some cadets, and I was trying to convince them that it's about followership first, and they keep giving me that look but you guys told us we're leaders.
Right.
Yes, eventually. Not yet. Not yet is important, man. Those two words are really critical. Not yet, but you got to learn how to follow before you can lead. And I think that's why we have problems with what we call leadership. You ain't a follower. You don't know how to follow, and you can't. I tell you, I've always been a leader, and I don't know how you feel about this. Whether our leaders are born or made. Yes, both. But some people are born leaders, and I've always led, man. Always, even when I didn't want to.
Right.
The toughest group to lead was the Chiefs group.
Absolutely.
Because and
Absolutely.
in the one that I'm thinking of, there were 20 of us, and every stinking one of them was, quote, a leader that didn't want to listen to me, and I was supposed to be the president. They voted for me, but they didn't
Yeah.
want to follow me. It's like, how does that work? So, no, you're right. That we got to be followers first, and then empowering others. And somewhere we do forget, I think, Darrius, that we got to have those people to do the work, or else, we're not going
Right.
to do it. We don't nowadays. And what was your field? You were
So I was intel, signals intelligence.
so you're like a smart guy, as smart as you are, and all of your people that worked in that field, those youngsters, those two stripers, maybe even the brand new one stripers,
Right.
probably know more than you do about stuff.
Absolutely. And I told them all the time, I said, you guys are a lot smarter than I am, right? Or smarter than I ever claimed to be. However, I've been playing the game longer than you. So
Mm.
follow me. Let's go.
Right.
I never try to get you to do anything you won't see me do. So, leading by example. But I will echo what you said about the Chiefs group and kind of double down on that. I will also add the first sergeants. The first
Oh.
sergeant council, when you go to the first sergeant council,
Mhm.
it's all the personalities on the first sergeant council.
Yeah,
So
yeah. Same thing.
yeah,
Same
yeah,
thing.
same thing. Yeah,
Now, in my experience, Chief, and guide me here for your experience, because it's I, I I served. I came in 1972. You weren't even born then. I don't think. Don't say it. Don't acknowledge that. Okay, we gotta have some respect for the old guy. But
gotcha.
the real power in being a chief for me, and I still do it, is getting on that phone and making a phone call to fix something for one of my troops. When they come in, chief, I can't get this thing. I can't get blah, 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 blah. Well, let me make a phone call and I'll help you fix it. That was, I think, real power, because that empowered them to go do what they needed to do to fix it. But I made the phone call, and that's the beginning of it.
All right, Chief. Now you're talking my language. If I may, right? Because I
Sure.
talk about truth telling, which is the T, and my stay ready.
Yes.
The Chiefs don't do that anymore.
Oh man.
Not like as I was coming up, because I've always been raised to the point to where, hey, Chiefs move the Air Force.
Mhm.
If something's not going to work for an airman, no matter what rank, a chief can, if it's going to work for the Air Force right now, you're not necessarily asking for favors that's going to hinder the
Right.
mission or anything
Right.
like that, but
Yeah.
you at least call and ask the question. But I don't see chiefs doing that anymore, and it's
Right.
actually disheartening. So because that's the way I was raised in the Air Force, like shoot, I need something to happen. Let me talk to Chief, and if he or she can make it happen, then it was meant to be. But nowadays we get the Chiefs again. That's jockeying for 10. And when I
Right.
say 10, I'm talking about the star. You're talking
Right.
about making command chief and sitting at the command level,
Right.
and they're not taking care of the airmen like they used to. And it's not a lost cause, right? But it's just more grooming that needs to happen, and remind the chiefs that it's okay. This is why we actually exist.
Right.
You have first sergeants picking up the phone every day saying, "Hey, airmen, whoever needs this to happen," and they move mountains. But when you get the chief to call, they be like, no, 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 I'm not for that right now.
Yeah.
I can't do anything or whatnot.
No.
So that's
Wow.
been my experience over probably, I'll say the last, because I've been retired almost 3 years now. So probably the last 4 to 5 years.
Yeah.
And it's just more people afraid to pick up the phone because they don't want to ruin their rep.
Yeah. Yeah, and you know, with all due respect, it's not everybody, of
Yep.
course, but you're right. I hear that from a lot of young chiefs that it's not that way anymore, which is, you know, that's sad.
Yeah.
But I think, at least in this is old school perspective, that's what you used to do. You just go fight for your people, whatever it takes, you know. And you're right. It was never about doing something wrong. It was about getting my airmen the opportunity to
Right.
do right, you know.
Yeah.
And there were some times when the other chief on the other end would say, "Hey, can't do it, man." I said, "Well, okay, at least I understand, and you tried." But
Right.
this youngster is right here looking at me, here, listening to this conversation.
Yeah.
He or she is learning the chief does this, and eventually, when he or she becomes a chief, he does the same thing or she does the same thing. So, yeah, yeah, you know that. What is that? Back to the Future. That's a good concept, I think. You
Right.
know, those old days were. You know, we made mistakes like everybody else,
Mhm.
but I think we had more. And I'm going to use the C word, character, in our daily conversation, our daily dealings with each other, and it's like I see sometimes on social media, chiefs dissing each other. It's like, no, man, you don't do that on social media. You
Right.
know, if I want to say something about you, Darrius, I'm going to go talk to you. I'm going to close the door. I'm going to tell you. I'm going to open the door, and you're still my brother when I open the door. You know,
That's
that's the
it.
way it used to be. But
That's how
I,
respect happens, right? You know, I respect your, I respect your opinion, but if I mean, I didn't mean to cut you off, but it's
yep.
when somebody calls, like you say, social media, they become the keyboard warriors, and like, come on now,
Mhm.
that's not what it's about. Like, call me, like you say, pick up the phone and call me,
Mhm.
or even send a private message and say, hey, I really don't respect what you said and all of these things. And I'll tell you, let me give you an example for that. Here at Randolph, Joint Base Randolph, there's two parking spots. One says
Mhm.
Chief Master Sergeant and one says E9. So I just took a picture of them. It's at the gym. I took a picture of them and I was like, it's all about perspective. And a fellow chief, sent me a private message, said, hey, let's chat about that. And then, we talked about how it's a joint base and different services, international things like that. So that was the purpose behind the E9 versus the Chief Master Sergeant. And I was like, got it.
Mhm.
Absolutely understand, right?
Yeah.
So E9 in the Army is not a Chief Master Sergeant either, right?
Right.
So
Right.
it was just, it's perspective. So
Yeah.
that was my analogy that I had that day. It was a learning point for me. I didn't take any offense to it, which
Yeah.
I still felt how I felt, and I made my point and we smiled, we laughed about it, and we moved on. So it was no
Yeah.
hard feelings, but exactly what you said. Pick up the phone and call.
Yeah. Just
That's what we do.
and we do it together.
Right.
You know, be like you said, be respectful, and we're going to do this together.
Yeah.
One of the other points that you write about in your book, Chief, is when your values and beliefs are consistently reflected in your external behavior, authenticity becomes effortless. I love that. Let me read it one more time because KC was not listening. Uh, he's gonna write me.
Yeah.
When your values and beliefs are not consistently reflected in your external behavior, authenticity becomes effortless. So, what do you mean by that?
As the kids say, walk it like you talk it, right?
Yeah.
You know, you do as I do, not as I say. Because like I talked about leading by example, there's nothing any of the people that have worked with me, because I hate saying people work for me, any of the people that have worked with me can say, hey, Chief told me to do this, and he wants me to take out the trash because it's beneath him, clean his office and do all of these things. Nope. You saw me do it. I led by example. I did my thing, and when we talk about it becomes effortless, it's just who you are, right? I have kids myself, so I don't want anybody mistreating them. And I used to tell the airmen, I say no disrespect, but I look at you as my kids, and my job is to return you home to your mom, make you happy, or mom and dad, keep you happy, keep you satisfied, because I want you to continue to serve. So I'm going to show you how this airmanship goes.
Right.
I'm going to show, I've been doing it for a while. I know what it requires to be successful, give you the work ethic, because that's one of the things that these kids today struggle with is work
Hmm.
ethic. But
Yeah.
when they see their leaders doing it, they know, okay, it's not that bad. It's not the unpopular thing to do. It's just
Right.
something that needs to be done. So
Yeah.
it all boils down to walking like you're talking, or
Yeah.
do as I do and not just as I say.
Right. And you know, there's I read a lot, and there's so much being written about culture lately,
Hmm.
which is good that we're thinking about it. But culture isn't something, you know, it's not I guess it's cognitive to some degree, but really it's actional. You know,
Mhm.
the culture is going to be the way the leader, at least the leader starts. Now,
Right.
there's a lot of complexities in that, but I've said this forever. I can walk into a shop and figure out how the leader is by looking at the followers, how
Yep.
they do things, or do not do, or say, do not say, because that's what they're emulating. And
Right.
you know that, Darius, they're watching us. Your kids are,
Absolutely.
they are becoming more like you every day.
Hmm.
I remember years ago, my first granddaughter, Nieves, was here at the house, and was doing something. I don't know what it was. And I said, Nieves, why do you do it that way? And she says, Opa, because you do. Oh, crap. And from then on, I had to be on my P's and Q's because I realized she's watching me, she's emulating, and that's the way it goes. So,
Yeah.
yep, no, do it right, whatever that. And the other part, and I don't remember if you mentioned it or not, Darius, but correct me if I don't.
Okay.
Because when at the academy, and I was there for about 19 plus years. I taught the freshmen, the 4 degrees
Hmm.
is what we called them. And during my workshop, I'd always tell them, look, wherever you see me, if I'm about to mess up, stop me. I do
Okay.
not want to mess up, and I'm not doing it intentionally, but we all fail at some things.
Yep.
Stop me, correct me. I'm good with that. And now that takes a lot of strength, especially
Hmm.
for a 19-year-old kid
Yeah.
to come up and say, "Hey, chief, the toilet paper stuck to your heel." So,
Yeah.
but I'd rather that than see the general come, not even see all of a sudden the general's there, and I got the toilet paper stuck to my heel.
No, that was one of the things I was big on because I'm not always right. And as we alluded to earlier, these I call them kids again. They're a lot smarter than what I am. So if I'm not doing something right, the process can be done better. Hey, educate me. Because again, I'm the leader, but I still know how to follow. So I've always encouraged airmen to speak freely, right? But with respect. And you just speak freely. Tell me, hey, chief, you're wrong. Hey, shirt. I don't really agree with how this was done. And then I talk about it and I educate them on why the decision made because, from their small box that they see, they don't understand the secondary and tertiary effects
Right.
of things that happen. So once you make them smarter and educate them, then they understand and they appreciate it a lot more. So yeah, correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
My skin is thick and I've learned that's the only way to get better.
Right. Well, and even as we move up the ladder of success, Darius, we learn more about the things like resources that we used to the term that we used to use was different colors of money.
Yep.
You can use this color of money for that, for dorms, and you
Yeah.
can use this color of money for infrastructure. You can whatever, but you
Hmm.
can't mix them up because the numbers don't add up. And
Yep.
some person, some bean counter knows all that stuff, and I don't know. I just like as in my little perspective, I'm thinking, well, why can't we do that? We don't have the money for it, but you have
Yeah.
money for this. Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's not always it doesn't go over very well sometimes, but as you get older you realize now I understand. So
Yeah.
uh, yeah, but no, you're right, it's got to be those. And I often say our values are always in our hands. What we what we do is the most important thing in that moment, whatever it is.
Right.
When you're hungry, what do? You eat. When you're thirsty, what do? You drink.
Drink.
All of that stuff, because that's the most important thing at that moment. And how you do it, with your troops, with your followers. If you're eating before them, hmm, I don't know, Chief, and you're talking about how great a leader you are.
Yeah.
I'm not. That goes back to followership, right?
Hmm.
No, I got to be the follower. I got to be the last person in line
Right.
because they're watching me. So, uh, another one. Let me get the. You do not need a title to set a standard. What? Come on, Chief. We gave you a title, man. What is it? Senior enlisted leader. Back in
Right.
my day, we always said you don't need a title to lead. And then something happened in between where now you do need a title, evidently, or else you're not the leader, which
Mhm.
that's my perspective, which whether it's right or wrong, that matters mine. But
Right.
yeah, so
So
what do you say?
leadership comes in the smallest of efforts, right? I think back to my very first when I graduated BMT. we showed up to tech school, and this ain't no way, shape, or form bragging, right? But we showed up to school doing Christmas Exodus, and it was me and 5 others that were stuck in the dorms. Everybody else went home. So now we're brand new airmen, don't understand what's going on. Like, how do we eat? What do we do? The DFAC was closed. We had no transportation, so it's just airmen sitting there, and nobody wanted to say anything. So I found the first sergeant, and I said, "Hey, first sergeant, DFAC's closed. You got 6 airmen in the dorms. What are we supposed to do? How are we going to survive for these next 2 weeks?" And things happen. The first sergeant made things happen. We got assigned a duty van. We got per diem. We were able to go off base and eat and things like that. So leadership doesn't require a massive lift or a massive effort. It's just you taking charge of whatever the situation may be. So you don't have to be deemed a leader to step up and say, "Hey, something's not right. This is what we should be doing." Or move in this direction. You're just revectoring, right? That's leadership.
Yeah.
And it starts at the smallest form. And once you take charge, others follow. You're leading.
Right.
So I don't have to be the senior enlisted leader to lead, right? The Air Force kind of transitioned to something where we start focusing on the influential people in the organization.
Right.
So it wasn't necessarily the chief or the first sergeant. If you had a staff sergeant that had a good pulse on the organization, that's who they wanted us to lean on.
Right.
And it was effective for a while. I don't know if they're still doing it now, but you get those influential people to kind of help send the message of the commander and the senior enlisted leader, whether it's chief or senior. And once the people get behind you, the culture shifts, right? So we talk about the thermostat versus the thermometer, right? So you want that thermostat. You want somebody who's setting that temperature of the organization or of the room, whatever room you're in,
Right.
regardless. So yeah, you don't need to be the senior enlisted leader, the first sergeant, or whatever the case may be to actually be a leader. You just need to have a good pulse and an understanding of the people and know how to connect with them.
Yeah, and the will.
Yeah.
That's again something that we don't think about. Having, and I think you can develop people to have the will to do the right thing, to be the leader. And
Right.
I've always said, not always, but I don't know, in the last 20 years or so, Darius, I've come to the conclusion that leading is functional. You do it sometimes. It's like following. You do it
Right.
sometimes. If it's your turn to follow, follow well. If it's your
Right.
turn to lead, lead well. And a lot of times it's just a matter of you standing up and saying, "No, I'll do it.
Right.
I'll take charge." Without ever having the quote authority to do it. You just do it because it's the right thing to do. And you're right. I think when you create a culture where we're willing to accept that as a culture, as an organization, yeah, whoever's right, man, go do it. And I think what goes with it is if you mess up, okay,
Yeah.
we've all messed up. We'll learn
Yeah.
from this. But and I don't know, the youngsters a lot of times. At the Air Force Academy, like I said, I had the freshmen, and still, when I see them, they're afraid to make decisions because the culture there for the freshmen is, if you make a bad decision, we're going to beat you up. Not
Yeah.
literally, but
I got you.
sometimes literally. But so they're afraid to make decisions where, and day one we told them you're going to be leaders. Well, leaders, when they're functioning as leaders, make decisions. You're liable to screw up, but go ahead, because otherwise you're all standing there sitting, all 6 of
Yeah.
you sitting, wondering, what are we going to do for 2 weeks? Well,
Right.
until you got up, you didn't know, and it worked out. So,
Yeah.
uh, 3 years ago, you retired, you said?
Yes.
So, okay.
3 years
So
ago.
what's the best advice you can give to brand new Chief Bob Voss? Because I just made Chief, and you've been around a little bit. What's the best advice that you can give me that'll help me become effective?
The best advice I would give you is to remain humble. You didn't make it by yourself. Remember those who uplifted you, and still follow them. You all can be chiefs, but there's still, I want to say, a hierarchy. But just remain humble, right? Because just because you can't promote anymore, don't mean you still can't learn. Because even as a chief, my mentor was a tech sergeant retired.
Really? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, man. He's still to this day best friend of mine. Chris Scott, I gotta show him some love. But he was the guy I always called on for that sage advice. So you just remain humble, and you're never too big, right?
Yeah.
So once you think you've made it, you're losing.
Yeah.
Once you think you've done it, you can't achieve anything else because this Air Force shows you, there's different levels of being achieved, and that's how you continue to grow. So remain humble and still be hungry to learn.
Yeah. Very good. I like that. Well, brother, it's good to have met you, and I hope that we can meet up sometime physically, so I can give you a man hug.
Yeah,
I
there
think
you
we
go.
still do that, but
Yeah.
best of luck with everything that you're doing. I know you're talking about moving from San Antonio to Florida eventually, but okay, but it's too hot down there, man.
That's what I know. It's hot in San Antonio. Just
Oh,
the grass looks better in Florida.
yeah,
The
okay.
grass is greener.
It is. That's actually, it truly is. Yeah. Yeah. We don't, I don't
Yeah.
think, I think we got some grass here. There's a couple of spots out there. No, man, but, and God bless you. If that's home, that's home. But I tell you what, man, as I've gotten older, I can deal with the cold a lot better than I can with the heat. And maybe not so much the heat, the humidity. And
Yeah.
I'm from the desert. I'm from New Mexico, from southern New Mexico. So mom, God bless her soul, she used to always ask me, come on, home. And, no, mom, I cannot deal with 110 degrees out here, even if it's a dry heat. No,
Right.
I'll shovel snow. Then, although nowadays I got to pay somebody to do it.
Yeah.
You will get there, brother. You
I
will get
believe it.
there, and you're gonna
I
say, "Man,
believe
that
it.
old chief was right." Oh, this hurts. So
Hey, Chief, that's a blessing.
it is.
That's
It
a
is.
blessing.
It is.
G5 used to talk about that. He was like, he knew what he was good at in life.
Mhm.
If he needed somebody to fix his brakes, he would go give a speech. He would
Yeah.
figure out how much it costs, how many speeches he had to give. And when I said, Chief Gaylor is who I'm
Yeah.
talking about, the
Yeah.
G5. Yep. So
Yeah.
yeah, I got it. That is a blessing to be there. So
It
I
is.
hope we get there.
You will.
Yep.
Little by little. Just don't be griping too much when you get
Okay.
there. Okay.
I got you.
But don't
Yep.
be the old guy at the pharmacy.
Yep. Got you. All right.
Okay. Thank you, brother. God bless you, and we'll stay in touch.
Hey, thanks, Chief. Glad to meet you, and thank you for the opportunity.
Indeed.
All right, brother.
Thank you for listening. We hope that you've gained something from this episode that will empower you to become a more effective leader. If you'd like to connect with us, please do so via our website at leadershipandforesight.org. The book So You Want to Be the Chief is available on Amazon.com and on Apple Books. This podcast is powered by the Institute for Leadership and Strategic Foresight.